Okay, I'm back, and the next set of questions are from Andiswa. First question is, the artistry of two art forms collaborating in your videos is exceptional. Thank you very much. Could it be possible to add even more art forms collaborating to create a masterpiece? Absolutely, the sky's the limit. I think there's something truly powerful as an artist from one discipline collaborating with artists from other disciplines, whatever that may be. And all of these art forms in themselves are constantly evolving, and there's this incredible connection to various cultures and heritages and histories and stories in different art forms that when you combine them and you collaborate with other artists and practitioners, whether remotely or in a physical space, there's all these points of contact and connection and meeting historically and looking forward and in the moment, and other points of difference and interweaving, and it's like two people who truly engage with one another. You'll find points of great connection and points of tension and clash, and it's about that dance and finding the things through that communication and truly engaging, which is something that is important, so important in the world. And unfortunately, I won't get into politics now, but this is immensely important, is engagement. And I think there's a profound potentials through that multidisciplinary exploration. So I love what you're talking about here, even more art forms collaborating to create a masterpiece. Absolutely. From a personal, from my personal experience, the key thing in collaboration is that two great artists don't necessarily, just if you get two great artists into a room from any discipline, it doesn't necessarily mean they can collaborate. There's a whole other set of kind of factors that allow two specific people to work well together. And if it doesn't work, it's not a criticism of either party. It's just there's another kind of magic that can happen in those spaces, but it doesn't always happen. So you have to first kind of meet with people and engage before you know if a collaboration is meant to happen. Have you collaborated with other art forms in the past? Yes, I have. I've worked with visual artists. I've worked with videographers. I've worked with dancers and with theatre directors. Trying to think anything else. I think that's the main thing. There's a few other things I'm working on at the moment which are new to me, which is interesting and exciting. What kind of challenges does one face in a project like that? Yeah, I would say those things I was just speaking about, which is, here's a cool thing, is though, because I've done quite a number of collaborations, and sometimes you can, you both endeavor to pursue this particular collaboration, and at the start it can feel like a lot of things don't make sense, or the path isn't clear, it's a bit misty, and you just have to lean into it. You have to lean into the wave, you have to dive underneath it, not let it knock you over. And through that comes a great amount of learning, through that comes a great amount of growing, and your experience in time becomes much wider than a day. Becomes much wider than a typical day, and you can pull in so much, and not all of that is stuff you're going to use, but years later I've often had a realization that something I now understand better, or can do better, or be a better collaborator, be a better person, comes from previous experiences of this nature. So you have to come in, be wide open, and sometimes you learn a lot about yourself in that time as well, and you learn how to, I think, be better at being yourself. It's immensely powerful. What kind of what do you find different in a musical collaboration compared to other art forms? I guess within a musical collaboration, People say music is the universal language. I don't agree. There are many different languages within music, many different dialects. But of course, there's if I meet a musician from elsewhere in the world and we don't speak the same language and maybe don't come from a similar musical background or don't read music or anything like that, we can still sit in a room and start playing together, and maybe it'll be cool, maybe it won't, but we can still sit and start making music together. Like, even if the other person isn't an improviser, they can actually improvise, maybe they haven't explored it. You can start making music, but with other art forms, I think a lot of it needs to start with first, well, not necessarily, I could get in a room with a painter and we start improvising. But I guess that's the main difference. It's just it's different tools and different vocabulary and really different instruments. And I mean, like in terms of, it's a paintbrush and it's a canvas, or it's things that generate sound. So those are the main difference, but a lot comes out of that, Jazz is notoriously dominated by men. It is. Can you share some insight on how we could change that and let women also be a part of the spotlight? It's a great question. There's a lot to unpack in that topic across all art forms, I think, most probably, and across all industry. So it's a huge challenge. I think the first thing is that, men need to be part of the solution. Men need to have these discussions. It's not a battle for women alone. And that's across the board, not just in jazz. So a lot needs to change. A lot needs to change in terms of the academic systems, in terms of how patriarchal most of the institutions I've seen are locally, in a lot of ways, and the way the music is taught, and create safe spaces for people to engage with the music, both as audience and as participants, where it's and I really mean that, a safe space for women. And young girls, because a lot of the music's like jazz and stuff that requires, a bit of time. It can be beneficial to start at a young age when you're in school. So just these welcoming, warm and safe spaces are really critical and can create great amounts of change now and into the future. But that's a great question. Yeah. Next up, we've got Onkagile, who is a cellist. And out of all the instruments that you play, do you have a favorite? It's certainly the bass, but I will say this, and I play electric bass and double bass and those equally, but they are really different instruments, I think. I will say this, I have an immense love for other instruments that I play. It's not a lot, but it's piano and guitar and a little bit of percussion and stuff. And the more I play multiple instruments, the more I really learn about music, the more I learn about other musicians, the more I learn how to hear music better, hear other musicians, and play with other musicians better. So I've made the biggest amount of growth in the years where I've spent more time on more than one instrument. But there's so much to be gained from really spending time on your own individual instrument. And I did that for a long time already from my teens, I get up from school and play until I went to bed and do my homework as well, but it's been a great time doing that. Do you think being able to play multiple instruments makes you a better musician? Okay, great question. 100%. 100%. But I do recommend if you have a love for your instrument, spend the most amount of time on that and try to master it. I think mastery is a lifelong thing, which is beautiful. The act of learning music is one of my favorite things about music, and you never stop learning. It's wonderful. It's really great. Besides the noise they make, do you find difference between different instruments? Yes, immensely, immensely. One of the main things is the architecture of it and the visual way you see it. So for example, I play an electric bass. My right hand sits like this. It plucks the notes. Much like a cello, you'll pizzicato or bow, and my left hand plays like this. That's kind of, upside down to how it would be on a piano. A piano would be like this, and it would go low to high. Here it's going low to high from the index finger, and here it's reversed. So there's a lot to be gained from breaking out of comfort zones, and the more you can learn about independence and dexterity and changing the way, it would be like swapping a knife and fork between left and right. It's weirdly difficult, and if you can master that, that also helps with the instruments. Actually, everyday stuff. I've heard of musicians who go and will carry, instead of always carrying a bag with the right arm, if they're right-handed, will do it with the left, just to gain more strength from the left arm and things like that. So when I play piano, the exercises around piano help my bass playing and all of these things, and there's a lot to be gained from growing those parts of the brain that control dexterity and independence in the hands and things like that. So then the second point beyond that is understanding the function in the music. Like when I play piano, I can hear pianists better when I play with them in a live band, where maybe I was just hearing it more as like here, like I can almost hear it from inside what they're thinking better, slowly getting towards that. If I listen to a bass player, I can hear what he's thinking in a way, you know what I mean? After he's done it, I'm like, oh, he's going for that. With piano, I would mostly just be like, wow, great, you know, it sounds amazing. Now I can kind of get behind things a little slowly, a little better. And that's important, and especially if you want to compose music and play different kinds of styles, the more you understand on a deeper level, the better a musician you can be. Even if you still just want to play cello, if you understand the other instruments better in the ensemble, you will become a better cellist. Because music, especially live music, you know, there's electronic music that's beautiful, I love it, and but it's very different to live music, where you've got frequencies that interact in an acoustic space with each other from different instruments, and they create new overtones, new harmonies that you can't get in a studio in the same way unless all the musicians are in the same room. But often with electronic music it's not, it's just different sounds put in the computer on top of each other. So when live instruments, especially acoustic instruments, are together, there's these interactions between frequencies and stuff that are incredibly powerful for the human experience, both the musicians and the audience. And there's a different kind of push and pull with time that, you know, computers got these grids and things work to sequences, and you can pull them off as well, but it's almost from that perspective first. Where in live music, sometimes stuff speeds up and it's good, sometimes it slows down and it's good, sometimes it's more steady and it's good. All these things are very human elements and very important historically, and in terms of, I think, like what connects humans to music for millennia. So these kind of different interpretations, like you might read some music with some friends differently to some kids in Brazil reading the same piece of music, and both are as valid, both are as good, but there's a different swing to it, a different kind of rhythm. Maybe you guys lean a bit forward in the tempo in the one passage, and they like play it a bit more relaxed there. Both are great interpretations, and like immensely important to have all these varieties of interpretations. But the more you understand about the other instruments, the more you're not just playing your part on the page and going, okay, it's eighth, you know, it's semiquavers and sixteenths, and now it's a key change, and you're hearing and you're able to zoom out and zoom in and hear all of that at the same time, and your brain and your perception of hearing develops to a point where you can hear all these interlocking things and really hear what the composer intended while still concentrating on your part. And you grow. Your hearing is essentially, it's kind of like a muscle that you can develop and grow over time, which is so cool. Let's see what else. I liked your music to Sleep to 3 video because I found it cool that you can make such small and soothing sound and texture out of an instrument that is usually very loud. What inspired you to start this series? Thank you, that's cool. I sometimes struggle with sleeping when I'm under a lot of pressure with work and stuff. I can sometimes struggle with sleeping. So the main reason I did it is to make some music that I thought some other people who sometimes struggle to sleep might help them to sleep. I deliberately made, I'm going to make more of those soon, but I deliberately made those songs very late at night when I was approaching sleep, so that I would actually play it true to the feeling that I was trying to conjure. So I didn't record them at 10 in the morning or something. I don't think it would be authentic then. So I deliberately did it as a way to actually relax myself and calm down and go to sleep. And yeah, I mean, I make music that is often very loud and very hectic, and it's made for dance floors and all sorts of other things. And I've been wanting to make some music to just relax to for a while. And lockdown was a good time to do that, actually. Why do you think people need music to sleep to? I guess not all people do, but I haven't read the studies on it, but there are a lot of people out there who use things like white noise and the sounds of the ocean to sleep to, and they find it very comforting and calming. It's this constant. I think some people use it with babies, and some people have used it with dogs and like puppies and things like that. And it's calming. It's sort of this constant thing that's not too hectic, not too many big jumps and stuff. It's almost like a duvet for your consciousness or your subconscious. But I'm not sure of the exact technicalities behind the studies. Yeah. And how did you find the experience of playing in the socially distanced improvisation sessions? What did you think of the result? It was really cool. They took very long for me to make, even though they were 1 minute each, because I was playing multiple instruments. With the ones I did with the dancers, they would send me a description of what direction to take, so I wanted to get into that headspace and really respect what they were asking for. It would be different things like a color, a mood, maybe something quite descriptive but abstract, and with the musicians, it was a different process, but there was a lot of playing and stuff, so that, I would improvise sometimes for a while to come up with the 1 minute I liked, and then that would be my starting point, and then I would improvise for a while to come up with the percussion I liked, and so it went. Some of the 1 minute videos took 5, 6, 7 hours to make, which was cool. It was lockdown and I was really enjoying it. I think I learned some things about the potentials of remote collaborations. Of course, if both parties are in really state-of-the-art studios, you can do even more cool stuff, but you can do some amazing things with what you've got. I've done some remote collaborations with people who just had cell phones at home. They didn't have a good microphone or a laptop or anything, and we made stuff happen. So if you've got a mobile phone at home, you can already create a lot. I'll tell you this, most smartphones now are leagues ahead in terms of processing power and memory to the first computer I had when I started producing music. So average smartphone, obviously the higher end ones, but still the ones that are kind of marketed everywhere in your MTN flyers and stuff, they've got more processing power and memory than the things I started on, and I was able to make full songs on those things. So it's incredible. If you can get a decent smartphone, you can do crazy things. How did the final experience of playing? Yeah, so that was it. Do you have any tips for first-time improvisers? How do you get started? Great question. I think a cool way to start, and this is something I do often on the double bass, and you play the cello, so there's, they're siblings or cousins, is I choose a key, either major or minor, and I just go. I often do this as a way to warm up. I play it very slowly, so I don't hurt my wrists and things, especially if it's winter. And I'll just improvise, and I try to let each note I play guide where my hand moves. And I'll make sure that I'm also using it as a chance to practice all across the fingerboard. So if I'm playing G major, I'll include open strings, I'll play it all up and down into thumb position, all across the fingerboard, and not practice just, one scale like this in a hand position. I'll move all around and do non-conventional